Alright, today we're going to be talking about and finding midpoints. And just like yesterday, today you're going to be finding midpoints on a number line and midpoints on the coordinate plane. We're going to start with midpoints on a number line. Alright, midpoint on a number line. This notation right here, we're going to call it x sub m. That means x at the midpoint. And in a minute, when we get to midpoint on the coordinate plane, y sub m, that's going to denote your y value at the midpoint. Alright, so when you are finding a midpoint on a number line, your midpoint, your x sub m, is going to be equal to your x sub 1 plus your x sub 2 divided by 2. The coordinate at the midpoint on a number line is equal to the average of the two endpoints. So you take those coordinates, you add them together, you divide by 2. So if you had this segment, it's got segment AB. You're told that A is at negative 17 and B is at negative 3, and you are asked to find the midpoint of AB. So when you're going to find the midpoint of AB, you're going to take the values of the two endpoints, add them together, and you're going to divide by 2. So our x at the middle is equal to negative 17 plus negative 3 divided by 2. So in your calculator, negative 17 plus negative 3 should give you a negative 20, and you're going to divide it by 2, and that's equal to negative 10. So our midpoint, our x sub m, which is going to represent the midpoint, is located at negative 10. Questions? Add the two endpoints together, divide them by 2. It tells you where the midpoint is. The second type of question you're going to see today on the number line is when you are told that B is the midpoint of AC. Find the value of C. Or find the coordinate of C. And let's say that this is your picture. B is the midpoint of AC, so our endpoints are A and C. B is in the middle. Yes. Let's say that the B is at -1 and the C is at, or I'm sorry, and the A is at -12. B is the midpoint of AC. Find the coordinate of C. Alright? So you're going to use the formula that we just wrote down for finding, you're going to use the finding the midpoint formula. So look, the formula says that x sub m is equal to x sub 1 plus x sub 2 divided by 2. In this number line, this -12 that's at your A, that's an x sub 1 because it's an endpoint. The -1 is the value at the middle, so that's your x sub m. And this up here is what you're trying to find, isn't it? That's your x sub 2. So if you just substitute for your x sub m, you can replace it with a -1 is equal to your x sub 1, which is -12, plus x sub 2, which is what you're trying to find, all divided by 2. If you take that equation now and solve for the x sub 2, you can multiply both sides by 2. The 2's on the right will cancel. And on the left you got 2 times -1, which is -2, equals -12 plus x sub 2. And you could add 12 to each side, right? And plus 12. And -2 plus 12? 10. So 10 equals x sub 2. So right in here goes your 10. So does everybody see how to find the midpoint when you're given the ends, and how to find an end when you're given the end and one middle? Okay. Alright, so now let's talk about midpoint on a coordinate plane. Midpoint on the coordinate plane. Now your x at the middle is still going to be equal to your x sub 1 plus your x sub 2 divided by 2. And your y at the middle is going to be equal to y sub 1 plus y sub 2 divided by 2. When you're finding your midpoint on the coordinate plane, you just have to do the midpoint formula twice. So if you're given a segment, or if you're given just 2 points, you've got point A and point B, or let's make it A and C. Point A is at 1, 1, and let's say that C is at 7, 8, and you're asked to find the midpoint of AC. Yes, you just do it twice. Alright, so your first is going to be Label the points. I mean, I would still recommend labeling points. This is your x1 and your y1. And then up here at point C is your x2 and your y2. So our x at the middle is going to be equal to 1 plus 7 divided by 2. And our y at the middle is going to be equal to 1 plus 8. Divided by 2. So our x at the middle is equal to 1 plus 7 is divided by 2. And our y at the middle, 9 divided by 2 is 4.5. So we can put a point about here. We can call it the midpoint, and it's going to be at 4.5. Any questions so far? Pretty straightforward. The last type of question that you're going to see on your assignment today is when you're going to be given coordinates on the coordinate plane of an endpoint and a midpoint, and you need to find the other endpoint. So let's say if y is the midpoint of xz, find the coordinates of z. And you may be given a coordinate plane, or you just may be given the coordinates with each point. So let's do it with a picture. Got your xy axis. Y is the midpoint of xz. So let's put x down here. And y is the midpoint. Let's put x at -3, -2. And we'll say that y is at 1, 2. There's a point Z that's the other end of this segment, isn't there? And that point Z, if x is an endpoint and y is the middle, then Z will be up here in this region. And let's go ahead and label it. Now we can just fill in the blanks. So again, I would label the points. At point X, we've got our x sub 1 and our y sub 1. Since y is the midpoint, this is our x sub m and our y sub m. And we're trying to find our x sub 2 and our y sub 2. So now we're just going to use the formula, okay? I'm not going to write the formula down again. We just wrote it. So the formula said that x at the middle, which is 1, is equal to x sub 1, which is -3, plus x sub 2 divided by 2. And then it said that y at the middle, which is 2, is equal to y sub 1, which is -2, plus y sub 2 divided by 2. And your steps are the same for solving both. So let's deal with the x. We're going to multiply both sides by 2. The 2's will cancel. And 2 equals negative 3 plus our x sub 2. Add 3 to each side. And 5 is equal to our x sub 2. For your y, multiply both sides by 2. The 2's will cancel. So 4 is going to be equal to negative 2 plus y sub 2. And then add 2 to each side. And 6 equals your y sub 2. So your coordinates at the other endpoint, or your coordinates at point Z are 5, 6. Make sense? Any questions? Your assignment for today is on page, it starts on page 32. On page 32, do problems 36 through 40. And then you got to go a couple pages further and do problems 50 through 54. And just be careful when you're reading the instructions. Some of the problems are asking for the coordinates of the midpoint, and some of the instructions are asking for the coordinates of the endpoint. You don't do anything on page 36. It's page 32, 36 to 40, and then you're going to turn the page a few times and do problems 50 through 54. Make sure you're checking your odd answers.